Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to this fourth and for the time being last Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform webinar in our Circular Waste Management series. Today we will be talking about collection and recycling of construction and demolition waste. My name is Astrid Severin and I'm a thematic expert for environment and resource efficiency at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform, and I will be moderating the session here today. I would also like to welcome my expert colleagues, so Magda Michalikova, who is also an expert for environment and resource efficiency, and Lotte van Meel from our communications team, which is ensuring our technical well-being. So, as always, before we are starting, just some little housekeeping rules. We are recording this webinar so that we have the recordings later available online, along with all the presentations and some useful links. If you have any questions, and we hope that we will have a good discussion with questions today, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. In the chat, we will also put useful links and information for you, which you can then look up. And last but not least, we will also launch a survey at the end of our webinar for your feedback and also for your suggestions of other themes and subjects that you would like to see discussed by the Policy Learning Platform. To start off, we would like to ask you also who you are, who is in our audience today, and we have prepared two polls. First of all, which on the background, so where you're coming from, regional local authority, waste management organization, a company, academia, NGO, or maybe you're from an European institution or organization. So please vote now. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we see a lot of regional and local authorities today with us, almost 40%, and also many people from academia and NGO. If you are coming from another organization, or if you want to share where you're coming from, please don't be shy and put it in the chat as well, so we get to know you a little bit better. And our second poll question is looking into your interest into this webinar. Why are you here with us today? So we have a multiple choice to see if you want to minimize the generation of construction demolition waste or obtain better data about it, increase recycling, reuse and recovery of the materials, improve procurement guidelines, or maybe you're interested in the policy learning platform or in finding future partners for your projects. Okay, thank you very much for voting this as well. We can see already there is a lot of interest in minimizing the generation and having better data, but most people want to really look into increasing the use of the material, reuse, recycling, and of course also some interest in the policy learning platform and future projects. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. We have a really interesting panel today, which can help to address some of these questions and your interest in the construction and demolition waste sector. So we are having a packed agenda with a keynote presentation from Jean Benoît Bel, who is joining us from ACR+. So hello, Jean Benoît. And we also have Interreg Europe policy changes and good practices presented today from the CONDEREFF project. So we have Vincente López Mateu with us from the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Hello, Vicente. We also can count on Sara Grassi from in Lombardy, from the CIRSE project. Hello, Sara, to you. And we also have Ingrid with us from the regional government of Styria in Austria. So hello, Ingrid, it's very nice to have you as well. Yeah, so we're here with the Interreg Europe program. And you know that we are in the new programming period already. The program has undergone a slight evolution. We lost our friends from the UK. But we got a little bit more budget, which is excellent. The key objective of the program also stays the same. So we want to improve regional development policies through interregional learning, the exchange of experience, and capacity building. So we are doing this in 4 areas in the former period. Now we are having a cross-cutting priority, which is capacity building. And there are 6 subjects which we are focusing on. It's smart, green, connected, citizens, social and governance. And there is a high concentration that has been asked on smart and green subjects. So we are fully in line with our webinar today on this as well. So you will wonder how this is going to work in the future. And you can now get ready for the first call of project proposals. The call will be opening on the 5th of April and close on the 31st of May. There is already some related documents and draft, of course, on the website, and you can inform yourself. And there is a launch event, Europe Cooperates, on the 5th of April, where you can get more information and data about how this all will happen. And there's also information days in the different countries going on. So please get informed yourself where this is taking place. Yeah, our today's subject is construction and demolition waste, a little bit of a different waste stream. The other webinars were focusing on bio-waste, on plastics waste, and on WEEE. Now we are going into a sector which is more industrial. However, more than 1/3 of all the waste that we're generating in the EU is actually construction demolition waste. And there's a wide variety of materials contained in that, ranging from concrete, which is at least 1/3 of this waste, to bricks, wood, glass, metals, plastics, of course, and also hazardous materials are contained in there. And the recycling and material recovery rates in the different member states are varying greatly. So from 10% to 90%, which is, of course, a very wide range. And we talk about 450 to 500 million tons of this waste generated every year in the EU. So a lot of waste that we're talking about. And you all know that the European Union is already focusing on this waste stream in the Waste Framework Directive, where, amongst others, there is a construction demolition waste management protocol and also guidelines on audits before demolitions. And of course, there's also the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is making a big point on this waste stream. So here today, we want to present you with some policy solutions. How you can tackle this waste stream. They're coming from the CIRSE project, CONDEREFF, and also smart waste. And we will look into all these different aspects as of collection or maybe tenders and incentives, quantities that can be estimated, and how to use of recycled construction materials can take place. So we hope that you will get inspired today with our webinar. We also hope that you have a lot of questions. And with this, I would like to go right away into our first keynote presentation. We're really happy to have Jean Benoît with us here today. So Jean Benoît, you will talk about improved resource efficiency through better policies for construction and demolition waste. And we are really looking forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Astrid, for the invitation. And thank you all for being here. I'm Jean Benoît from ACR Plus. I think now you can see my presentation. So I will talk a bit about how to improve construction and demolition waste, and also to make it more circular, because I feel like the main message from my presentation will be to make construction and demolition waste management really part of a circular construction strategy. A few words on ACR Plus. If you don't know us, we are the Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management. We've got about 100 members in 23 countries, and our members are mostly local and regional authorities, so cities, regions, also public utility companies, waste companies, but we also have other members. And we mostly do capacity building and facilitating the exchange of good practices among our members that share the same challenges. And we've been involved in several EU projects, some of them focusing on construction and demolition waste. And so most of the stuff I will say today are from those projects. Astrid already shared some key figures on construction and demolition waste. This is one of the main, most significant waste fraction when you look at tonnage, but it's also a very important sector for Europe in terms of economy, in terms of jobs. It has also a huge impact in terms of resources, not only material resources, but also energy and water. And for us, it's a very important fraction because it's a very local, like it's a resource that needs local and regional planning. So it's a fraction that our members are really interested in. We looked at construction and demolition waste at municipal level, like what kind of construction and demolition waste is managed by with municipal waste. Within the collectors project, it's a over Horizon 2020 project where we looked at good practices on waste collection. And we collected some data in about 30 municipalities. And what we could see that municipal construction and demolition waste is a very heterogeneous concept across Europe because some cities will take the responsibility of managing also commercial waste, and some will try to limit as much as possible the quantity of construction demolition waste they manage in civic amenity sites mostly, or they will focus on key hazardous fractions such as asbestos. And usually this is a waste fraction that is mostly managed by private companies. But cities have a big role to play in planning and in making this waste management part of a circular construction strategy. In collectors, we mostly looked at two case studies organized at local level by cities. The first one is in Remarsval in the Netherlands, where they started the collection of clean gypsum in civic amenity sites to engage them in closed-loop recycling. And in these practices, they really put a strong focus on quality, because without the right quality, you can go to closed-loop recycling. And the driver behind this good practice, and it's the case in many good practices in waste, is a tax on a ban on landfilling of gypsum in the area, which that is interesting to sort gypsum. And overall, the collection system has a positive economic balance, despite the fact that they needed to transport the gypsum in far away from, to be recycled, mostly because of the saving they could do on landfilling. Second one is quite interesting. It's from one of our members in Denmark, Odense. It's a city in the middle of Denmark. And here they've got this approach. They've got a very well organized network of civic amenity sites, where whenever they find a new innovative recycling route, they will just open a new container to collect that waste and try to provide it to the recyclers. And here they organize the collection of bricks in civic amenity sites to be reused by a local company. So the local company is taking the bricks, it's cleaning them, preparing them, and then using them again as new materials. And what we found, because we did an economic assessment and environmental assessment, and this action has a very positive for both the economic balance, because of the proximity of the recycler and the high landfill cost. So there are lots of saving to be done for even for the local authority. And we found the environmental balance very, very positive compared to the use of bricks as aggregates, for instance. So I guess this approach is really interesting also for a city. Another good practice I want to talk about is what they've been doing. Maybe they've been moving forward, like starting from an approach that was clearing the debris to producing raw materials, and to boost construction and demolition waste collection and recycling. They first had taxes and bans on the incineration and landfillings to make sure that it end up. There some tools where you can identify empty spaces and building, so that you don't need to create new ones. I mentioned in Flanders, but other EU countries did that, the mandatory pre-audits for demolition, where you want to assess waste arising and composition and see what you can do with them. In Zurich, they've done this mandatory use of recycled concrete for public buildings, and that is standard also for recycled materials. And you can see on the top right of the screen, this city hall in Venlo in the Netherlands, where they had this very integrated cradle-to-cradle approach. So they did this building, the eco-design it completely, so that every element could be dismantled, not only the building, but also down to the furniture, the chair, the table. They all can be dismantled and repurposed or recycled at the end of their life. One or two slides left, there's a new EPR system that could be interesting for this topic that will be implemented in France. So France has this tendency to do EPR system for all type of waste, and now it's the time for construction and demolition waste. Should have been implemented this year, but they had a bit of delay, so it will be next year. And the idea is really to boost the density of collection point and to favor reuse and recycling, but also to fight against illegal disposal by proposing a free take-back system for waste producers. So for the moment, the law, mostly they give some recommendation and obligation on what should be sorted, the density of collection points, and soon the producer responsibility organization will have to do management plans at regional level to assess the needs for collection points, and they will have to follow several criteria in terms of proximity for the collection points and in terms of hazardous waste accepted. Maybe to end this presentation and to open up to some more resources, I mentioned these sustainable construction guidelines that we did 2 years ago at ACR+, so I really invite you to have a look. You can find some key recommendations, but also lots of good practices that you can dig in and find inspiration from. And I hope that you will find some answer to your question. Well, that's it for the presentation. Didn't want to take too much time for the other speakers, but I will be happy to follow the rest of the presentations and answer to your question if you have any. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Jean Benoît, for this nice presentation. We have also posted some links already in the chat, also to this last guide that you have just been presenting. So you can also tap into these resources that we are proposing here today. So thanks very much. I was wondering, when I was listening to you, what would you think in terms of what are the best incentives that lead to more reuse and recycling of construction and demolition waste in your view? You know, it's like the number one, is that the banning landfilling, or what do you think?
Yes, I would say that the first one to consider is really that, but that's also true for other type of waste. We were discussing bio-waste not too long ago, and that's also one key instruments that make recycling more interesting or more compelling for the local players. Mostly, I would say the taxes, because the bans can be difficult to implement, but making it too expensive to dispose of waste is a good driver to find other solutions. But on that, I think it's important also to say that you should have a tax, but also to give back also part of the money to the recycling sector or to the front runners, and you want to use this money for investing in recycling equipment, because you also need to provide the right tools for people to recycle. But yeah,
and
I'm not original in that.
You need to create a local market as well, right? Where, for example, as you mentioned, the gypsum has to be transported very long. So maybe if things can be more recycled or reused locally, that is also a big advantage. Yeah. So if you
yeah. But it's also a question of scale. You cannot always do that in locally. Like, you need a certain amount of waste to be profitable. So it's a bit more complicated, but
very good.
Yeah.
You need critical mass to be able to do so and to make it financially viable. We have a question from Connor Walsh for you. He asks, when bricks are collected at the CA site in Denmark and are sent to the brick manufacturing factory, at what point do they become end of waste? And the second is, does the brick factory need a waste permit?
Oh,
Would you know?
I'm not sure I know this question. We did a webinar actually during collectors. I think I can find the link and send it to you. Maybe they address this point, but I'm not sure they do. But the webinar at the waste company and the brick company, so maybe they tackle this issue. I will find the link and share it.
We will send you the question, and then we can answer in writing later to Connor as well. I was going to ask you the same thing. We have a question from Brigitta Wixner, who asks, there was a free take-back system mentioned by you. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on this?
Yes, I think this is for the EPR system. I guess it's that waste producer can bring back their waste free of charge, get collection free of charge to avoid illegal disposal. I'm not sure all the details are set. I think this is set in the obligation in the law, but I don't know how it works. I guess that the same than the usual EPR system, there will be EPR fees paid by the producers, and then collection points will receive financial support, or the producer will then self-organize collection points, and they should be taking for free under certain conditions the materials.
Yeah, we have a second question that also aims at finding out more about the EPR system in France a little bit more. It's coming from Victor Miruchna from DUH in Germany. And and he's also asking, what is the current experience in France preparing for the EPR system for building materials? Would you be able to answer that?
Maybe this is, if it's about how the building sector react to that. I know that there are strong discussions because some believe that it's a bit expensive, or that it will increase costs. So I know that discussions are ongoing, and I'm not sure everything is still set. And I know that there are also much discussion going on how to boost reuse and how to fund reuse, and how much money should be allocated to reuse. Then the issue with EPR system is that you have the framework, and then when it's implemented, it's an all other story. So because how it's enforced, all the players are complying with that, how it works at local level is really something that you can observe when it's ongoing. So for the moment, I only know the general discussions about it, but not in detail.
Yeah, it's starting in 2023, so it's still a lot of commotion around it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jean Benoît, for answering the questions. As we said, if there was not enough detail now available, we will come back to you later in writing, so that we can have a little bit of a look into some papers maybe as well. Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. So we will go now into some good practices and recommendations from our friends from the Interact Europe projects. We are starting with Vincente López Mateu, who is going to speak to us about estimating quantities and types of waste in construction, a good practice that they have identified under the CONDEREFF project. So Vicente, the word is yours.
Thank you. Astrid. Well,
We see everything fine.
okay, thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Vincente López. I'm an architect, a teacher at the UPB, University of Polytechnic University of Valencia. The background is a picture of my university. Well, I've been developing my professional activity about 20 years, and also the research about this waste management and rehabilitation and retrofit of buildings. In the last 3 years, I am part of the CONDEREFF team, and I will explain you two best practices we have identified in our region. Finally, I'm very grateful that you have invited us to be able to share the experiences with all of you. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, we can talk about, well, the best practices, but you have introduced in the video and in the previous presentation. So they are like a model, but you can you have benefits, and on the other hand, you have some challenges or limitations. I will try to explain the two good practices, and if you have the possibility to reproduce or implement in your local environment or country. You have talked about previously, Astrid, you have talked about that 1/3 of the UE waste is in construction and demolition. It's a huge amount of this waste, and it's a real problem, a real environmental problem. And it's mandatory in the different countries, according to regulation, to establish or to study properly to have a pre-audit or demolition audit or pre-building audit. Also, on the other hand, it represents a huge potential of means or resources and employment. You have explained in the previous speaker. And how we can do that? Well, we can we are focused on estimating the types of waste and the quantities of this construction and demolition to properly separate them and use in other products and manage all the process. Well, here you have a scheme of waste management phases. All of us probably know about it. The different elements that implies from logistic storage and different processes. But we have focused in the first and the second one, the planning and control in the previous project, and the documentation or regulation and supervision that we need in our projects. Talking about the first good practice is about the ratios or rates. We can talk about rates of waste that are generated in these operations or this task of demolition or new buildings, or even retrofit or rehabilitations. This is a manual that is produced or is studied for a long time for two global Spanish organizations, the architects, technicians, quantity surveyors, and have popularized this guide in order to estimate the national rates of construction and demolition. Probably, as you know, Spain is divided in some administrative provinces or autonomies, we call, and local regulations are different, and the amount or the quantities of this waste is different in the different regions. So the study has started knowing or studying from the different companies that trade the waste, and even from the dumps, the real values that have obtained, and they have compared in these different areas the amount or the quantity of the different waste produced. The results were as you can see here, different charts that explain, according to the area location, the amount that is expected to collect from these different materials. And these are classified according to the EU codes of construction and demolition waste. What shows this? This shows that there is a huge difference from the different regions of Spain. You can compare the north with the east and the coastal areas with interior or the inner lands, and it's well, it's common sense maybe, because it's related to climatic regions and the construction system used in each one. Also, it's related to sustainability, because in each area, from the territory, we use or should use different materials, and gives you a more intuitive way to know what is expected and how we can classify better the materials that we can find in every region, not related with this political or administrative division. The second one is about, well, it's an APP from the Institute, well, Valencian Institute of Building, can be translation of PIBE, and it's about a free APP that is now updated. It is about, well, you know that recently there are the new generation funds that are a huge amount of money prepared to rebuild or regenerate the economy after the pandemic of the post-COVID-19. And a part of this money is in Spain, we will dedicate to urban rehabilitation. So they have developed some tools that you can see here. And one of these tools is about the recycle, how to recycle or how to manage with recycle the materials. This APP is totally free, and you can obtain, or you can get from a few building characteristic of features, a huge amount of data that you can use, as you can see here in this chart, that you can even introduce the previous one that I have explained, and calculate or evaluate properly the amount of each material and properly separate them. Even you can locate the companies that are able to manufacture or reuse these materials in a map. Give you all the information where you can locate. So from basic data, you can, I'm talking about few data about the building. You can get a lot of information, and particularly one that is very important to get these funds is that at least the waste partition must be about the 70%. That is in the same direction that you have explained, that the waste must be recovered. And well, you can obtain, I insist in this because it's very important, that from basic data you can obtain all this information. Finally, I want to present, this is not a good practice, well, but it's a comparison between what happens with commercial software. You get from you choose an building solution, or you get budget, and finally you get this kind of reports, but these reports are blind reports. You can change anything. These reports are related to the first choice, and sometimes it's hard to change these things. Well, in our project on CONDEREFF, we are trying to change this situation using the charts that I have shown before, trying to introduce the three stages or the three parts of the waste demolition management, that is forecast, on-site adjust, and final result, in order to justify them. Well, the conclusions of this presentation is that it's a very important or a key point, good initial analysis in waste management. The second one, we need this kind of tools to manage properly because it's a very complex task. And finally, they help to estimate the amount of different waste more accurately in how to manage them. The 3D diffusion to local authorities facilitates the diffusion and knowledge applications. And this is the first step to establish a better control and administrative monitoring of all the process. Well, I hope I've been on time. For further information, you have here my email or address, and you can ask some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vicente, for guiding us through this. It's very interesting, especially my first question to you would be, you mentioned the CONDEREFF toolkit.
Yes.
Is that toolkit available in English?
Yeah.
And if yes, is it open source? Can everybody use it? Can we share it with our audience, for example?
Well, the idea is that it's an open source that we can share with all the participants in the project and maybe with the audience. I have to consult with all the partners, but yes, this is the idea. And to introduce these charts according to different countries or different areas, or geographical areas, to calculate or estimate the amount of waste, and how to reuse it.
So very good. So we can share it, and everybody can benefit from the huge work that you have been doing. I think it's very important that we know what is there, so that we know how we can reuse it, how we can recycle it, and that you even link it. Is it linked with the app that you presented? Or is that a Spanish app only?
So sorry, not at this moment. But it
not at this moment. The other thing I found very interesting to see is that you said that there is local regulations different in each of the Spanish regions. Is there any harmonization effort that is going to take place in Spain on this issue? Very briefly.
Yes. The issue is that we have very different local regulation, but we have a comparison all of them and try to unify. This is the main idea, because if not, it's like you are taking different data and very confusing. It's not real, because sometimes where you get the information from the past or from previous studies, and the construction has changed and it's changing now, and probably you don't get the real information from the dams and from the companies that manage these elements.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. We have a question from Brigitte Wixner, who is asking, saying first of all, thank you. And have you considered how to link the collected waste to the materials identified in the project and materials in production, where there are share of recycled materials as stated, meaning the circularity?
Yeah, we are, this is the second phase. We are of our toolkit. We are now studying how to manage previously the amount of waste, and secondly, to connect with the reuse of these materials.
Thank you, Vicente. So it's very good to hear that as well. We have several people that are posting very interesting information. We have Andy Rees that says in Wales we commission every 5 to 6 years a construction demolition waste survey, and you have access to the survey here also in the chat. So please look at it. I would also be grateful when the people that have been posting their interesting projects. So I have seen City Loop project, Live IP project, Econ4SD project, and if you can also post the links in the chat so we can also access to your interesting projects, that would be really great. And then again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat. I would like to say thank you very much to Vicente for his explanations. So we understand better what is in this waste actually and how it can be reused. So thank you very much. And we would like to go to the next presentation. Now we're going to Italy, where you have a Memorandum of Understanding for Construction and Demolition Waste. And Sara Grassi from the Thirsa project is going to present that to us. Sara, the word is yours.
Thank you, Astrid.
It's perfect.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. My name is Sara Grassi, and I work for ANCI Lombardia, the Regional Association of Lombard Building Contractors. In recent years, for our sector, environmental and sustainability issues are ever more important. In particular, the issue about the management of construction and demolition waste requires specific reflection and action against of the waste quantity produced. So in 2017, we signed with the Regione Lombardia the Memorandum of Understanding based on two main objectives that you can read in the slide. And in the same year, we took part as a stakeholder to the CERS project directed by Regione Lombardia. And the project was working on different industrial sectors as we were involved in the build environment group. And here we are with our best practice. Now I quickly present to you some data about the production and management of construction and demolition waste in Lombardy to frame the problem. Lombardy produced about 15 million tons of non-hazardous C&D waste per year, which represents the 50 of non-hazardous waste produced in Lombardy, as you can see here. And this data represent also the 20% of C&D waste produced in Italy. About the waste management, Lombardy is a very virtuous region, as only 5% is sent to landfill. So the target of the European Waste Framework Directive is achieved. And this is a very good outcome. But as you can see in the chart, this chart, the amount of C&D waste grows over the years as we are implementing relevant urban regeneration policies. Increasing the amount of the C&D waste, we also increased the production of recycled aggregates to be used. And therefore, we need to solve these three problems. The lack of knowledge about the possible uses of recycled aggregates, because they are used mainly for road works and not for structural application of others. In some cases, they are not used because people don't believe that these materials can guarantee the same performance as natural material, but it's not always true. And there are several European standards about the possible use of them. Second, in Italy, public administration not always require the use of recycled aggregates in tender or provide two rewarding programs for users. Third, the construction sector needs a specific regulation for the end-of-waste recovery process of C&D waste. And operators are still using in Italy an old and generic law, not in line with the current knowledge. In particular, the law concerning the leaching test is generic because it is addressed to all kinds of waste, and it doesn't consider the future uses of secondary raw materials. On the basis of these problems, we focused on 4 topics. About the first topic, I tell you, for example, that the University of Brescia analyzed the leaching test standards used in the other European countries to understand how Italian legislation could be improved. And the research group drew up a proposal for amendments to the national standard, and the discussion with the ministry is still ongoing. About the second topic, we have been carrying out many initiatives. I can tell you 3 examples. Number 1, 2 years ago, Regione Lombardia issued a new law on urban regeneration. And one of the criteria to receive economic and biometric incentives is about the use of recycled aggregates. Number 2, we are promoting the application of the national law on green public procurement concerning minimum environmental criteria in construction. And we are waiting for the approval of another one for road construction, which should encourage even more the use of recycled aggregates. Number 3, we are promoting at the regional level calls for funding for technological improvement of recycling plants. And we organize training activities for all the operators involved in the supply chain. Training activities are about the legislation, the waste management, the selective demolition, the waste classification, the features of recycled aggregates and their use, etc. At the end, we developed a web application made by ARPA Lombardia to put in contact producer and users of recycled aggregates called Market Inerti. Below, you can see a small screenshot that I show you just to let you understand how information are organized. So you can consult company names, addresses, type and name of products, reference about European standard, quantity available. And in the following page, you can also consult documents about CE marking, declaration of performance, and the leaching test. And we think this is a good application to give more visibility to this material. And now, as you can see, the outcomes are many, more than we sincerely expected at the beginning. This experience tells you how public and private together can work well on action and policies to develop the circular economy in a specific sector. I think this is a very simple experience to replicate in other regions in Europe. You only need to have very clear your targets and the necessary tools to achieve them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara. Well, I think that is quite a lot what you have been achieving already. I think my first remark would be going in terms of you achieved already 95% of your construction demolition waste going to recovery, which is excellent. So do you think that is due to this memorandum of understanding and all the measures that you just explained, or was that already beforehand the case and you're now trying to keep that same level?
I think yes, because for a builder is more cheap, is cheapest send waste to the recycling plant than send the waste to
landfill.
Landfill, yes. And the work on issues I'm presenting you will certainly continue in the coming years. And the Regione Lombardia has established a monitoring observatory on the future outcomes on different industrial sectors, So this is a good opportunity to go on this way for us, for our sector.
Thank you very much. Sara, maybe Jean Benoît, do you have a question for Sara?
Yes, thanks, Sara, for your presentation. Very interesting. My question would be, how did you bring together all the different players around your project? Like you mentioned, the fact that landfilling was more expensive, but are there other reasons why they came to you, or you motivate them to participate?
I can tell you that since the SARSI project helped us to join different kind of interests, because people that took part to the project are were architects, engineers, and different public administration, different trade association. And this is an experience for us very important, because helped us with the Memorandum of Understanding to work together on these issues.
Thank you, Sara. So while everyone is discussing how we can share the interesting links, we can just promise we have already found one way for our last webinars. We will share all the interesting links, and somewhere or another, and you will find them in our follow-up article, just to say that. So don't be worried. Sara, I think if I understand it well, as you're addressing that there is a lack of knowledge, a lack of promotion of what is already there, and you have set in motion a real system which allows us to improve your legislation, to have the right information included in your calls for tenders. You provide incentives, training, and you have this web application. All of this addressing also this lack of knowledge, so that everybody can work more towards a better recovery and recycling of construction demolition waste, and hopefully in the future also to the reduction of this waste. But because we have seen it is mounting all the time in your region. Well, thank you very much, Sara, for your presentation. That has been very interesting. If you have more questions on how this memorandum has been constructed, so you can still ask us in the chat. And we will now give the word to Ingrid Winter. So Ingrid is going to speak to us about the Austrian Recycling Building Materials Ordinance, also identified under the CONDEREFF project. So Ingrid, the word is yours.
Yes, I will share my screen now. So, does it work?
It's perfect. It works very well.
Okay. So I have to start at the beginning, sorry. Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Ingrid Winter. I'm head of the Waste and Resource Management Unit at the Regional Government of Austria. And it's an honor to present today the Austrian Recycling Building Materials Ordinance, which is, of course, not a Styrian ordinance, but a national Austrian ordinance. Yes, so to the next slide. Why was it necessary to issue an ordinance on recycling materials? The reason is because we were, as most of you, challenging many problems with the collection and recycling of construction and demolition waste in the past. So what were the main challenges we were facing? First of all, you know that various hazardous substances can be contained in C&D waste. That might be asbestos, tar, HBCD, or others. Then the use of inappropriate types of C&D waste for recycling resulted in patchy qualities of recycling aggregates. And this affected both the applicability and the confidence in recycling building materials. Then there's still a point of the low costs of primary resources. Currently, the prices are rather high. And of course, this makes probably a difference on the market, on the economic competitiveness of secondary raw materials. But in the past, the price ratio was different, and primary raw materials were comparatively cheap. And in addition, there's a landfill tax in Austria, and this resulted in a high share of low quality recycling. Also, for some types of recycling materials, the limited application range in practice led to excess materials on the market. There was also in the past no end of waste criteria, so no product status could be reached for the recycling building materials. And last but not least, there was often a legal uncertainty due to the lack of a clear legal regulation. And in order to better meet these challenges, the Austrian Recycling Building Materials Ordinance was issued in 2015 and revised in 2016. So, next slide. So, okay. This ordinance aims at two major points. You can see them in the red boxes on the left-hand side. On the one hand, the standardization and improvement of the quality of recycling building materials. And on the other hand, the improvement of the marketability of the recycling materials. To discuss at first standardization and especially the quality improvement, what does it provide for this? One of the most important things was the mandatory introduction of a pre-demolition audit. Subsequently, all materials containing hazardous substances and impurities must be removed before the demolition. Furthermore, the input materials for the production of recycled building materials, as well as the quality classes of the recycled building materials and the ranges of the application are defined in this ordinance. The ordinance or the content of it is rounded off by specifications for quality assurance and labeling. If we go now to the marketability, how to improve that, the most important factor was the legal certainty achieved due to the precise regulations, the end of waste status for high quality recycling materials, and the alignment with the European Building Products Regulation, especially in respect to the declaration of performance and the CE marking, which is connected to this. To give you now an impression on this pre-demolition audit, what is the scheme, how to do a demolition process. The most important thing is that the pre-demolition audit has to be performed before the invitation to a tender or receiving an offer. So it's really the first step. It has to be applied in any case where more than 750 tons of waste are generated during the demolition. It is not required for really small projects where you only have less than 750 tons of waste. If you have to do a pre-demolition audit, there are also two different cases for the smaller projects where the enclosed space is less than 3,500 cubic meters. Here you have to do a so-called preliminary investigation of pollutants and impurities based on an Austrian standard. And for larger projects where the enclosed space is more than 3,500 cubic meters, you have to do the so-called comprehensive pollutant investigation. And this is based mostly on a European standard. After the tender, but before the mechanical deconstruction, deconstruction concept has to be created, and then the identified pollutants and impurities have to be removed accordingly, and afterwards the approval state has to be confirmed. Only for small projects, again with less than 750 tons of waste, there's a relief from that formal requirements, but even here the pollutants and impurities must be properly removed from the site or from the deconstruction materials. And only after the following this procedure, the mechanical deconstruction can then start. So after the confirmation of the approval state when the hazardous substances have been removed. So on the right hand side, you will see the two standards, the Austrian standard, the ÖNORM B3151, and the European standard, the EN ISO 16000 part 32 for those who are interested in it. This is an overview on the different qualities of recycled building materials we have. So that's a lot, of course, of different materials. The ordinance also defines the permissible input materials and also the areas of application and quality assurance measures. The most important thing is the highest quality, the UA quality you see on top, because this is regarded to be a product after following the ordinance or the procedures of the ordinance, and can therefore be used as a product also in unbound applications. So what did we learn so far from the implementation of this ordinance? First of all, the pre-demolition audits and high quality standards are crucial. Secondly, the input quality for recycling building materials could be significantly improved since introducing this ordinance, and a clear sign for this is the fact that most recycling aggregates declared as the highest quality, so this UA class, which reaches the end of waste. Furthermore, we could significantly improve the recycling rate for C&D waste. It is well over 80 years. It's assessed every year in Austria, and the last available data shows a recycling rate of 82%, but in previous years it reached up to 88%, so it's a rather high recycling rate. But not everything is, of course, that good. We realized we can also see that the lowest rates, recycling rates, we can observe are in areas where the landfilling costs are comparatively low. In practice, it became also apparent that it can be difficult to identify certain hazardous substances during this pre-demolition audits. And for some materials, there are still no relevant recycling loops established so far, for instance, for gypsum or mineral fibers. But here, the already planned landfill bans will probably build pressure in the right direction. And last but not least, the second highest level of the waste hierarchy, the preparation for reuse, is still underrepresented in the construction sector. We heard about this already earlier today. So a good question is also how to communicate such sophisticated regulations to the public and to the various stakeholder groups that are involved in construction and demolition projects. You can see the target groups we compiled already for the first time in the year 2012 a guideline that contains all legal and professional requirements in this building sector, and we revised it in 2016 to include this building material ordinance. And thanks to CONDEREFF, the last update was carried out in 2020, where the topics of reuse and also how to deal with invasive neophytes on construction sites were included. In addition, in 2020, the guide was also translated into English, and so I invite all of you to download this steering guide to construction and demolition waste for free from our website. And the website where I can download this guideline is the third you have here in the list. The link above it is the link to our unit website, where you can read about all our initiatives in the sector of waste and resource management. And the link on top is, you know it already, the link to the project CONDEREFF. So now I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ingrid, for your interesting presentation and for the work that you have been doing. Also, in Styria, you have been making a lot of progress with impressive recycling rates between 82 and 88%. I think that is a very good result that you have been achieving there with your work. I have a question, and there's also in the chat that goes on questions about end of waste criteria. You have been saying that you didn't have them. So, and now with the ordinance, you have the end of waste criteria. Is that for all the materials? How did you go about? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, it's only achievable for the highest quality for the product as such, for the recycling material as such. That means the producer of this recycling material has to follow the ordinance, all the quality assessments and so on, and of course the processing. That's in detail described in this ordinance. And if the producer of this high quality recycling material hands over this material to a third person, then the end of waste is reached. So the person who takes it over to use it in his building has already a product and does not need to have a permit as a waste collector. This is a big advantage on the market. If you have lower quality materials, of course, also end of waste is reached, but also with the concrete recycling steps. So if you use this material for building, if you implement it, then as in all other cases in Austria, the waste status ends with the step of the recycling, with the application step of this material.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, excuse me. And I was wondering, is that only applied to Styria, or is that also applied in other Austrian regions or nationwide?
No, this is nationwide, because this end of waste criteria also is the recycling building materials ordinance. These are national legislation, so the competence to make such regulations lays within Austria, not in the province of Styria. So we are mostly responsible for non-hazardous municipal waste, but of course we have to deal, and we are involved in the authority permit procedures and as experts, and so we're involved in these things, and we have to also try to improve the handling of C&D waste to improve the recycling materials, but the legal authority is the national ministry.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Maybe I can ask Jean Benoît if you have a specific question.
Yes, I've got some questions. But first, I worked with Styria about 10 years ago about municipal waste in an Interreg project, and seeing them still doing very good, very aiming for the best is really nice. Yes, I've got a question because you mentioned the quality of aggregate. You said that most of it reached the highest quality standard. Do you have recommendations on how to ensure that the aggregates reach that high quality? Like, how did you ensure such high quality with collection?
This is a rather sophisticated procedure laid down, so you have, of course, to analyze these fractions according to this ordinance. But the recommendation is, or the thing is, what turned out is it's really the pre-demolition audit. So you have to remove all hazardous components of all impurities, because only then you can reach the highest quality. So this is really very crucial. And if you speak about demolition, these buildings are often something like 50 or 70 years old. And at that time, I think everybody knows there were materials used which are there is a ban now for asbestos, for instance. A long time you're not allowed to use it anymore for a long time, but still, if you have demolition buildings for demolition, you face these materials and you have to remove it properly. And this might be difficult, as I mentioned. I think on one of the slides, there are, for instance, paints containing heavy metals, or if you go to those insulation materials, often it's not clear from looking at if it's containing these brominated inflammants like HPCD or other stuff, and this is not that easy to really know what is contained in the building. And for the future, I think some using digital applications like BIM modeling, where you collect all the data on the building materials you use in new buildings, will of course ease the demolition in the future time.
Yeah, we have not touched upon the use of BIM yet, but I think it would be really good to have this link to have know what the footprint of the building is actually at a later time as well. So that's very good. Jean Benoît, you have another question, or?
Yes, I just wanted, you mentioned reuse at the end of your presentation, saying that this is the next step. I was wondering if you have already plans for reuse. What do you plan to do about that?
The one thing we have already done is to implement this topic in our guideline, so that the people know that, in fact, during the pre-demolition audit in Austria, you have to look at reusable stuff in this building, and you have to offer it to third parties if somebody can use it. But if there's no market for it, or there's no request for such materials, then it's difficult to reuse them. So this is why in the first step we implemented, or we added this issue to our guidelines, so that people who are reading it know that they really should look for this, and that to raise the awareness that it's the highest second step of the waste hierarchy. Second is also, probably you know that in Austria there is an initiative called Baukarussell, so they really try to go with their projects into the market, and what we can do as a public administration unit is also to share the knowledge with them, or to share their knowledge on our websites, and to try to collaborate in future projects. And what we want to do within our CONDEREFF project, so we have to implement now the action plan, is also to provide a sort of toolkit for municipalities, because they are both. They are building owners, but they're also the competent authority for new buildings. And so to provide them a sort of toolbox where we also want, of course, to focus also the issue of reuse in the building sector.
I have another question from Ruth Tracy. I think it's for you, Ingrid. It's saying, can it be interpreted that waste materials is being reused in construction as waste if it doesn't reach declassification as UA? I don't know what UA is, I'm sorry.
UA is the highest quality of our recycling building materials. If you reach this, then you obtain the end of waste before you put it on the market, or when you put it on the market, when you hand it over to a third party. For all other recycling waste materials, you reach it when you implement it, when you use it. This is, of course, you can do it, of course, but you have to do more paperwork, let's say this, because still, if this material is on the market, it's still under the waste regime. When the question was, I don't see it here now in the chat, when you're talking about reuse of building materials or components, building components, then the preparation of reuse is applied to waste. But this is also according to the European Waste Frame Directive. When this preparation step is finished, then you again have a material. But for reuse, the big problem is the CE labeling. So if you have some constructive parts, it might be a problem to to get those CE labelings. So it's now mostly the reuse limited to something like furniture or lamps or whatever.
Thank you very much for explaining that as well. I have now for all our presenters, I have a question now from Monica from Slovakia. So I will ask you maybe to go in turns. So she's asking the following. So the EU considers backfilling of construction and demolition waste as recovery. The EU has set a joint commitment for reuse, recycling and recovery, including backfilling, at 70% of the weight of this waste. This makes it possible to load old quarries and open mines with this waste, and this is against recycling. So she's asking what is the experience of backfilling in the countries of our presenters. So what is your experience? Maybe may I start with Vicente, maybe?
Well, backfilling is considered in general for general purposes. I mean, not for architecture. Is or for buildings. Is considered for general infrastructures like new roads, and they allow the backfilling in an average, but you have to previously establish an agreement with the company and know where the backfilling is from, you know, and the average of or the, how to explain, the components that are included in this backfilling. It's not at this moment a real problem, because we haven't got so many how to explain real roads or train paths or something that uses a big quantity or a big amount of backfilling.
Yeah, I think the question is saying that a lot of backfilling is happening to close old quarries and open mines, and this is, you know, hindering the recycling of this material. It's just being sort of dumped, if I understand the question well. Is that an issue in Spain, or do you see it as an issue?
We use backfilling even for dams, for the urban waste dumps in a lay, you know, a previous lay or a general lay to access to this dumps of general waste. We are one person in our team is studying the best way to study the quality of this backfilling according to the standards, and because it's sometimes it's not a question of quality, it's a question of I can say of money. How much is this backfilling cost? Because the companies pay an amount of money to use this material, and the material comes from these companies that they recycle the material. So the question is how identify properly and how much costs the backfilling.
Yeah, I thank you very much. I think this is one of the issues that's being discussed here in the chat very heavily, at least earlier on. Also this, as you say, the landfills with the layers, it's used, so it seems to be a controversial issue. I don't know, Ingrid, maybe you can say something about this in Austria. Is that an issue for you as well, hindering recycling?
The question is if it meets the requirements to be regarded to be recycling or not. If it's no recycling, then you have to pay a fee. This might be rather expensive, but if it's about excavation materials, recycling means that the material has the sufficient quality, and also the the measure you are performing makes sense. So just backfilling something is not regarded to be recycling, but I think that goes very deep into our national legislation on what is waste, what is the end of waste, and I think that's really difficult. Would prefer to answer such questions written and not orally, because it's really the question, what is the precise question? So what materials we are talking about, and which what is backfilling now, especially, and all our legal the legal framework in Austria is written in German, so it's difficult to translate this now properly into English and to understand the connections to our law, to our waste management law.
Very good. So I can only encourage Monica from Slovakia to maybe write this question to us, to me, or to Magda or Lotte, and then we will be able to ask our panelists to give you a written answer. Sarah, do you have any opinion on this, or maybe also rather a written answer?
In Italy, when we speak about recovery, we are speaking about something that we are sending to a plant, a recycling plant. We don't use this word to speak about landfill. So when we, the backfilling of quarries in Italy, you can do it only with, not with waste. We can only use it recycled aggregates. So this is what happened in Italy.
Very good, very clear answer. Thank you very much. So I'd like to thank you for trying this backfilling question, and we will come back on it again, so to see how we can resolve it. Jean Benoît, do you have a question? You have an opinion on that, or any experience?
Backfilling, well, not really. We just see it as a complicated things to compare data, because some of them, some territories will label it as backfilling, some as recycling. It's always difficult to compare the performances. And it's a kind of the limit of putting together reuse, recycling, and backfilling in one single target. And we should probably, but that's the same also for putting reuse and recycling for municipal waste. We should really go for better, more precise target if you want to go higher in the hierarchy. That's really a strong driver. I think the key message is to have separated target for recycling and reuse.
Yeah, I think that is one of the outcomes of the other webinars as well. So the separate targets are a very, very important question. Yeah, with this, I would like to start the last round with our panelists, and maybe I just stay with you as first, Jean Benoît. I just wanted to ask you all to name me 3 key issues that you think that need to be urgently addressed to increase the reuse and recycling rates of construction and demolition waste. So from your point of view, what do you think would be the key issues? Maybe it's already having separate targets, Jean Benoît?
Yes, this is one. I think it's a strong driver, like to have prevention, reuse targets. We mentioned economic instruments, and I think all the speakers kind of talked about taxes, landfill tax, and I still think it's a strong instrument. Also a way to fund reuse initiatives. And I think there was lots of discussion in the chat on the end of waste criteria and the need to harmonize a bit more. And I think this is true for many other topics, not only for construction and demolition waste, but this is also. And I think we should aim to better harmonize this end of waste criteria and clarify it for every territory.
Thank you, thank you. Can I ask Sarah, what do you think are the 3 main key issues which we have to start with?
Main key are national or better, an European law about the end of waste for the construction and demolition waste. Another one is the promoting of incentives and promoting the green public procurement and all the criteria possible to incentivize the use of secondary raw materials.
Thank you very much. I can give maybe the word to Ingrid next.
Yes, I do not have many news for you. So, of course, end of waste is very important, green public procurement, and also the market conditions. So maybe on taxing or something else, financial incentives, because if the prices for primary raw materials are getting to be lower again, then it's always a question of what is cheaper for the consumers. So the high prices for primary raw materials, of course, are somehow good for the use of secondary raw materials, and they force us into the direction of circular economy. But as you know, this economic frame can change very quickly again, and so I think this should be directed towards more circular economy in the future.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Vicente, what is your key takeaways?
Well, I talk about three elements. The first is finalize or to harmonize the regulation in different provinces, countries, municipalities, and the common market about the use of that allows the common market about the use of these materials, because it's difficult sometimes to interchange these materials in our different regions, even in Europe. The second one maybe is traceability, to know when a material comes from, and finally it arrives maybe to a landfill, but it can be used in other place or building. And traceability of the process is the second one. And finally, to dedicate more means to the municipalities, because this issue is ruled by municipalities. There are small towns sometimes that don't have possibility to access to the proper software or the proper means, the proper necessity to cover their necessities. And some of them, probably in Spain or in coastal areas, are municipalities that have very few population all the year, but in summertime it's double or 10 times the population, and yeah, it moves a large amount of this kind of waste.
Exactly, and help them also with some resources and information. Well, thank you very much for all your input. It's really good to hear your expert opinions. And we will, of course, share your presentations, as we promised, also all the links and also the recordings of this webinar with all of you. This has been our last webinar in the Circular Waste Management series. However, at the end, when you're closing down, you have the possibility to fill in a survey and also to suggest other subjects if you want to maybe speak in the future about textiles waste or campaigns to raise awareness, or any other subjects which you believe could be of interest. We can also encourage you to get in contact with us if you want to have any individualized services as a region or municipality. You can use the Interact Europe Policy Learning platform, for example, for a peer review or matchmaking to speak about your specific policy challenge, and we can bring you experts that can help you address them and get inspiration and experiences from other people, an outside look. So with this, I would like to say a big thank you to our speakers, to the ladies, Sara, Ingrid, and to the gentlemen, Jean Benoît and Vicente. Thank you very much. A big thank you also to the team, to Magda and to Lotte for all your work in organizing this webinar. And we hope to be in contact again soon with you. We hope to hear from your opinion about our work. And with this, please stay healthy and see you soon again at one of our webinars. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, see you.
Bye.
Bye.